I'd like to introduce now Dr. Ann Gillies. Dr. Ann Gillies is a Canadian trauma specialist, pastor, author, activist, speaker, rancher, wife, mother, and grandmother. Ann's skill in clear and brave communication is broad and expertly delivered across all avenues of media as well as in person. Ann is energetic, good-natured, focused, kind, and with spine to spare. Dr. Gillies is a lover of truth and human flourishing who courageously leads the charge against falsehoods and harms in society. Despite as well as because of the personal price she has paid, Dr. Ann Gillies is the real deal.
And I did not write that. My friend, actually, Dr. Van Mol, Andre Van Mol, wrote that as an introduction for me for one of my books. I just wanted to mention him for a moment because some of you may have been aware of a new declaration that has just been signed by 500 medical doctors and psychiatrists, psychologists, and it is a declaration affirming biological identity and the truth that male and female, not gender ideology, should be reigning. It's an amazing document. So that was just last week, and he was a spokesman in the US. He's done all kinds of political briefs and just had great success. But I want to talk about something today. In 2016, I was writing this book, Closing the Floodgates, and I decided that I would read something to you from that book today, because most people are totally unaware of these things. And when I was writing this book, after it was published, even though there were some people beginning to awaken to the trans movement, and they were going, well, this doesn't sound right, there's something wrong. Nobody wanted to talk about homosexuality. Nobody wanted to talk about what was going on in the whole agenda. I'm talking about activists. I'm talking about those things, but I'm going to read something that was written, actually, I put this in my book. It was written in 1987 by Michael Swift. You may have heard that name. He was a homosexual activist, and he wrote this in 1987. So what you need to understand is this whole agenda, and I hate that word, but the agenda has been going on for 70 to 80 years. This is not something that happened overnight. We've woken up as Canadians, finally, but this is a strategic plan. So let me read what Michael Swift said. "We shall sodomize your sons. We shall seduce them in your schools." Hello? What's been happening in our schools? We shall seduce them in your schools, your dormitories, your gymnasiums, in your locker rooms, in your sports arenas, in your seminaries, in your truck stops, and your all-male clubs. Your sons. So he was speaking in 1987 about sodomizing your children. Remember that song with all the homosexual men saying, "We're coming for your children, we're coming for your children"? That just came out a couple of years ago. It's been in the plan for decades. Your sons will be our minions. They will be recast in our image. This is the plan, folks. This is what SOGI 123 is all about. It is about corrupting your children and my children. They will come to crave and adore us. Listen to this. All churches that condemn homosexuals will be closed. What's going on? It's not just churches, but look at all the churches that have been burned in Canada. And think of how Christians and other faith groups as well, but Christians right now actually are being persecuted in Canada. We're not allowed to speak in the public forum, but we will speak. So this is what he was saying. Our gods are handsome young men. And this is really important for you to take away. Too much is not enough. You need to understand this about LGBT activism. And in a sense, about homosexuality itself. Now, I'm not talking about being against people, but we need to understand that homosexuality as a behavior becomes a compulsion, and too much becomes not enough. It is an addictive practice. Any kind of sexual thing carried beyond the limits becomes addictive. So this is what they are saying. This isn't what I said. This is what Michael Swift wrote. Those who oppose us will be exiled. Have you felt exiled in Canada? Exiled from your schools? From talking to your teachers? From going into your schools? They lock the doors on us so we can't even go in to see what they're teaching our children. Come on, folks. Repeal all laws governing the age of sexual consent. This is what is part of the plan of the LGBTQ lobby. Wake up. Wake up, people. They want to repeal all legislative provisions that restrict the sex or number of persons entering a marriage. Do you know we have polygamous marriage accepted now in Canada, in places in Canada? I think it's in the East Coast, which was such a shock to me. This agenda has been moving. It's like one of those moving sidewalks at the airport. We're walking on it, it's moving under our feet, but we have no idea what's controlling it.
That rainbow never ends, Doctor.
And I'm telling you, it is so destructive. But listen to what he says at the last part here. There's so much more in here. If you want to read more, you can talk to me later. The family unit. So we are here about family. We are here to support the family. It is the foundation. It is the foundation that Canada has been built on. Spiritually, we're built one nation under God, but the family is the one who teaches the children, who raises the children. And this is what Michael Swift said. The family union, thank you. The family union, what only dampens imagination. Can you imagine saying that? As a parent, you only dampen the imagination of your child. The family unit, which only dampens imagination and curbs free will. Because guess what? We might have some boundaries, and we might have, you know, some rules and limits for our children. Like, no, you're not having sex outside of marriage. Could you ever imagine that? I mean, and that would be horrendous to think. But, you know, parents don't want their children to be promiscuous. What parent wants that? We want our children to grow up healthy and wise. The family unit, which only dampens imagination and curbs free will, must be eliminated. 1987. 1987. And so this conveyor belt has been going for a long time, and we're just catching up. You know, in 2016, there weren't very many people listening. And I am so encouraged to be here today. I'm looking at all of you and just so excited to see you show up on a beautiful Saturday where you could be doing all kinds of other things. And you are here because you care about children and you care about what they're being taught. And what they're being taught is horrendous. It's far worse than you could ever imagine. I'm going to share a stat with you. I'm doing another book. I'm writing another book right now. It should be out hopefully by October 20th. It's going to be called Picking Up the Pieces of the Lost Generation. Sometimes the research I do keeps me up at night. And you know how we put our children in school, but also we put our children in daycares from the earliest ages. And I want you to know that daycares, and I'm not talking about LGBT stuff being taught in daycare, just putting your child in daycare is compromising their mental, physical, and emotional health. In fact, a two-year-old put in daycare for 5 months will have the same cortisol levels, stress-induced cortisol levels, as children from the Romanian orphanages in 1990. Can you imagine? This isn't about beating parents up. I did it. And we didn't know. We didn't know. We have to stop We have to stop and take a step back and say, what can I do to protect my kids in every area and to keep them mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally well? So anyways, I'll have more on that later. I think I've got a couple more things. What do I have here? Yeah, we have to stop sacrificing our children in this new religion. We've talked about that, the LGBTQ religion that wants to replace every other religion in Canada. Stop sacrificing your children. The best thing you can do is get them out of the public school system. That's the best, but that takes a lot of sacrifice. But I think over the next few years, parents are going to have to take a few steps back and say, I need to do some more sacrificing on behalf of my children. And I mean, as hard as that will be, and I get it, but we have to reconsider what needs to be done. And as groups of people, we want to help young parents. And there's new initiatives coming up with schooling and all kinds of stuff all the time. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. So the pride flag, I want to tell you, is a desecration. It's a desecration to our national identity. It does not speak for us, and it does not speak for our children. And we say to them, your too much is not enough, stops here. It stops here with the parents, and we're putting our foot down, and we are going to change moving forward in Canada. Oh, I know. Oh, can I say that?
Oh,
Yes.
I just want to shout out, what you said is absolutely right. You know, churches have caved. Churches, the Christian church has not stood up for righteousness. I'm talking generally. There are churches that are standing and pastors that are standing. But yes, we're going to be there tomorrow. But you know what? By and large, the Christian church has not stood up for morality. They should be setting the standard. And we've caved to this ideology because of the pressure. We caved to pressure. Stop it. Stop it. As a Christian believer, I say to you, stop it. Pastors, rise up and protect the family. This is what God calls us to do. We're created for a relationship with God, for one another, man and woman, marriage, and with our children. Let's stand together and stand together with all. Thanks, Camille.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor.